Greetings. Welcome to another broadcast of I Have a Testimony. I'm your host, Brother Willie Muhammad.
God came to us to seek and to save that which was lost. He raised a man from among us.
He, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, laid the foundation. What I'm doing is something that comes from him through me, and the thing that he uses in me to do the work is my faith in him and the word that he taught. To produce men and women who wanted to clean up their life and build an independent nation for the glory of God.
Today, we are blessed to have one of the student ministers under the leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. He's our brother Corey Muhammad. He's the student minister of Muhammad Mosque number 36 in the beautiful city of Charlotte, North Carolina.
So we come into the mosque and we become a part of the Nation of Islam, and we come in here dirty. Is that right, brothers and sisters? Yes, we come in here dirty, and guess what? Even if we've been here 1 year, we still are dirty to some degree. If we've been here 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, I'm blessed to celebrate coming up. This will be my 28th year being in the Nation of Islam, but guess what? Still have some dirt, because according to Scripture, all of our righteousness is as filthy rags. So this lets us know we still have some dirt on us.
Assalamu alaikum, my dear brother, and thank you for joining us today.
Wa alaikum salam, brother. How are you?
I'm good by Allah's grace, man. Let's get straight to this beautiful interview. So, before we hear about your story about how you came to learn about the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and how you came to eventually become a member of the Nation of Islam, can you share with the audience some of your history prior to doing so? Like, are you a Charlotte, North Carolina native? What was your history?
Yes, sir. Born right in Charlotte, native Charlottean, all the times I've been around. So didn't grow up in church, didn't grow up in the church. Would go on like Easter with my grandfather, things like that, but didn't grow up in church. But yes, native Charlottean.
And what, like high school, did you attend college there? What?
Yes, I did, brother. Graduated here, high school in Charlotte. Did a little college. Didn't graduate from college, but did a little college. I got married very young the first time around. As a matter of fact, I was 19. So I got married right coming out of high school after I graduated. We were pregnant, and we just decided that was the best step to do. And that's pretty much how that works. And so I was working by the time I got introduced to the mosque here in the Charlotte area.
I was blessed to visit the city of Charlotte from your invitation some years ago, and really enjoyed your hospitality and the spirit of the believers and the parts of the city that I was blessed to actually see. How is the Black community there in Charlotte right now?
Well, like so many other cities with our people in, you have some that are doing all right, you have some that are doing well, but there was a study that was done, and in terms of upwards mobility, Charlotte actually came out of the top cities. It came in as in last place. And so Charlotte is a beautiful city on the outside. But I remember when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said sometimes, or he mentioned how all the buildings, and he was talking about how people put a lot of time in investing in the buildings, but not building of the people. So there is a rising consciousness in Charlotte. But if I had to look at it, it's a awakened community, awakened city in some ways. But we're facing our own violence, our own black on black crime or fratricidal crime, all of that. So it has its issues that any big other city would have. But overall, it's a city with a lot of potential.
Wow. Beautiful, beautiful. And how have the believers been holding up during this whole shelter in place and whole COVID pandemic?
This has been a very unique time. Some of us, if we would think about it, if we could go back and hear some of the stories that our grandparents would tell us, but I don't know if there's ever been a story quite like what will be told now, to wherein for almost 2 years, we've been sheltering in place. And it so happens that when we first started this sheltering in place, I know it may have surprised some of the believers. It may have surprised some of us that, all of a sudden one day you go from Savior's Day, having an incredible fun time we all had at Savior's Day, and the minister saying what he said, And then some 3 weeks later, we come back and we have this shelter in place. So as this goes on, I would say overall the believers are doing well. Some I've noticed have went and developed certain talents. The minister told us uses the time of prayer, the time to work on ourselves. So those that follow that are doing just fine. And of course, just like anywhere else, there's some that are having some challenges. But as we hold on to this word and as we go in with during this time, this is what's going to be what we need to strengthen us for what's ahead.
Yes, sir. And we transition now to hear how you came to the teachings of the Most High Elijah Muhammad. Like, when did you first hear about the teachings? And then how did you go from hearing about it, learning about it, and then eventually saying, I'm going to join and become a member of the Nation of Islam?
Oh, brother, just thinking about that, man. We all have a story. And that's why I love the title of this. I have a testimonial. I have testimony. So I'm going to kind of go back for a second and make it as quick as I can. But here's how I was introduced to the teachings. First is my father was a part of the Nation of Islam. He was in FOI. Matter of fact, he was a lieutenant here in the city of Charlotte. And that's how my mother first met him. My mother first met him selling Muhammad Speaks paper. And then my father's mother, which is my grandmother, unfortunately, she died when I was very young. I wasn't even 1 year old yet, but she was actually an MGT in the mosque. So I didn't grow up in the mosque. And nor was my mother in the mosque. And by the time I was 6 to 7 years old, my father and mother, as many couples do, they ended up separating. But I came up hearing about the teachings. I would hear from my mother. She would share things with me about the mother plane when I was younger, and my brothers as well. We had a couple of the albums. Not that we sit around and listen to them all. I don't want to get that impression, but we had some of the albums. And being a young boy, I would look at the albums and look at the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. It was just something that intrigued me about that. We had a couple of the first grade books from Muhammad University Islam. Not that we attended that, but we had some of that material that was from my father. And so on Sundays, we didn't grow up in church, but my mother would have us circle around the hi-fi. Now I'm dating myself. Now, some of us remember that big hi-fi thing that was in our home, and we would listen to Imam Warquddin, and then I didn't necessarily want to hear it as a young boy, but that's what we would listen to. And so I'm going somewhere with this, and pretty much this was before even a teenager. And then by the time I became 14 or 15 years old, Charlotte here locally had the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan on cable TV, and so my mother would watch it. I'm 14, 15, like playing with my friends, riding the bike. But every once in a while I'll catch it and listen to this man. And I didn't really know about him too much, but it kind of connected to some of the things I remember in my childhood. But I went on, played about my business and everything. And so when I'm around 17, may have even been 18 years old, I got a flyer when I was out with my then girlfriend, my children's mother, and it was a flyer inviting the community to come out and hear our former Mid-Atlantic regional minister to come out and hear Brother Abdul Alim Muhammad. And this was during the time of the Dope Busters and all of that. It was at one of the church fellowship centers here. And so I ended up going that night, and, my girlfriend went with me, and they separated us for the check the whole 9 yards. Anyway, I loved what I heard that night. It led to me finding out what a local mosque was here in Charlotte. And then I went and met the student minister, Brother Minister Louis Muhammad, and just kept going ever since then, got an orientation class. And that's what gave my introduction to being a part of Muhammad Mosque number 36.
That your father was a member of the very mosque that now you are over, right? How did he feel when he found out of you, if you, I don't know if he was still alive or what, that you are now joining the Nation of Islam?
Well, my father returned to Allah back in 2005, which was before I was asked to be student minister here. However, we would talk about the teachings, talk about the Million Man March. We were supposed to meet there, but something ended up happening. He wasn't going there, but he was proud. He was proud of it. And I guess I'll share this part because my mom would tell me this, and we kind of laugh about it to this day. But she wasn't in the nation, and he wasn't as active when they ended up getting married. And he and I still have a letter that he wrote me and all of that. But he wanted to name me Akbar at the time.
Wow.
And my mom, coming out of the church but not attending church, she was like, now keep in mind this, I was born in 1970, so she wasn't really with the name Akbar. And matter of fact, we joke about it. She said it heard it sound like a candy bar. You're not naming my baby that. She just didn't know. But they ended up compromising. I ended up with my father's first name, which is actually Lester.
Wow, that's amazing, man.
Yeah, so praise be to Allah.
Now you said that you all used to gather around the stereo system and listen to the imam. Like how was that? Like so did your father during the fall he followed the imam as well, or?
No, when my father and my mother separated, he went to another whole state. So we didn't see him. I didn't see him for some time, quite some many years after that. And so what I remember mostly about that experience, I remember the way it came on. There's a really popular station here in Charlotte, or at least it used to be, because, you know, the AM radio was popular back then. And so it was a station called WGIV. And if anybody from Charlotte looking at this, they'll remember WGIV. But when it came on, the imam, they had the Adhan plan, and they had different things saying. That's one of the things that stood out. You know, being a little boy here, and that's I was thinking, this sounds funny. It sounded strange to me. But what I remember mostly about that is some of the times wanting to go outside and play, but we were made to do that for the most part, my two brothers and I, and so we just would listen to it.
And now, knowing all of that history about how your mother met your father, he was in the nation, and your mother was not in the nation. She was leaving the church, but she still had a friendly disposition from what it sounds like toward the Nation of Islam. When you hear all of that and you possibly almost being named Akbar, and you see where you are today, like where do you see Allah's hand in it?
Oh, brother, so beautiful as all of us. You know, we look and see how Allah orchestrates things. I left one part out that I want to go ahead and add in. The brother that helped bring Islam here under the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was Brother Larry X. Now, this is a brother that was introduced. He was from South Carolina, then ended up moving into Baltimore and then to New York. And his brother introduced him to the teachings. All right. And this brother is a brother that the minister mentioned many years ago about some ministers or some brothers that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, sent out to the West Coast. And Brother Bernard Kushmil, Brother Jabril. But see, Brother Larry was also one of those brothers, you know, and so Brother Larry did a lot of work, a mighty work here in the Charlotte area. Now I'm going somewhere with this. He owned a store called Shabazz Fish and Take, and it was on a very popular black thoroughfare in Charlotte called Beatty's Ford Road. And so all the community children, a lot of us would go to Shabazz. When I would go visit my grandparents, because I didn't live close to Shabazz, when I visited them, we walked that little half mile up there to the store and get all that penny candy and these big jack cookies and all of that. But when you come in there, Ali Shah or Minister Larry then would always talk to the youth. So even in my 9, 10, I remember going to this store and I would go there and sometimes order these good vegetable sandwiches they had on homemade bread. And he'd just take time to talk to you. And it was because before I actually joined the mosque, I was going in and out of that, even after I got my license and just being schooled more and more. And he would tell me about my father and my grandmother and all of that, you know, and just getting to see the great work that Brother Larry was doing. So I even look at between the time of actually joining the mosque, between the time of getting that flyer about coming to the church to hear Dr. Alim speak, there was multiple visits to Shabazz Fish and Take.
Grandmother as well. So we appreciate what you shared. And later in the program, we want to talk more, ask you some more about the history of Charlotte and those who have labored to build the foundation which you and the believers are standing on. But what we're coming up on our first break, and we're going to pause to hear something from our sponsors. But when we return, we're going to hear more from our guest, Brother Corey Muhammad. For those who are watching, make sure you hit the subscribe button and make sure you hit the like button as in the heart button while you're watching. That helps with the algorithm so more people can hear and see this great interview. Thank you. And we're back, brothers and sisters, with our guest, Brother Corey Muhammad. He's the student minister of Muhammad Mosque number 36 in the city of Charlotte, North Carolina. And so you talked about how, you know, you're the student minister. You mentioned that. And so can you talk about how you became appointed to that position?
Yes. Well, when I first became a part of Mosque, I came in and being as humble as I can, I came in excited about the work, came in soldiering, and still to this day, you know, still continue the soldiering. Was blessed to brother student minister Louis Muhammad, you know, was blessed to be an assistant to him. But prior to even being an assistant to him, I was served in the secretary department for some time. Also, of course, served as lieutenant for a little over 7 some odd years. So serving a lot of different various roles. And the last one ended up being a student assistant minister, and it was a student assistant minister to 4 different administrations. And then there came a time when we didn't have a student minister here in Charlotte. And this was right during the time of when Charlotte had the Holy Day of Atonement here on the 17th anniversary of the Million Man March. But so I was asked shortly thereafter, I was asked if I would assume the position. It wasn't something I was necessarily excited about at the time. I mean, I was fine just assisting. But the time came when I was asked and I decided to accept it. And here we are today, striving to make my word bond.
Praise be to Allah, man. And because you were there serving, man, and that's something, you're doing a great job there as well. Now, I'm a big fan of history, and I love to learn as much as I can about the history of various mosques and study groups in the various cities. You mentioned about Brother Larry. Is there any other information you can share that you have learned about the history of the mosque there in Charlotte, and even other ministers before you and the other laborers?
Oh, brother, we look at the beautiful shoulders of those that we stand on. And so Brother Larry with Temple number 36 here under the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and then there came the time after the departure, in terms of here locally, and I'll give it the best way I understand it, Brother Lee Muhammad in the early 80s was going back and forth to New Jersey and other places, and and it eventually came to him to come back here to Charlotte where he lived and to go ahead and set up what is now Muhammad Mosque number 36. And I remember him telling many of us, he was telling them, well, why don't you all send somebody? And they said, well, aren't you going back to Charlotte? So he ended up being the mighty brother that was here to set up Charlotte, as well as many other mosques and study groups in North and South Carolina. I look back in at some of the laborers there. There's been quite a few brothers and sisters that have helped shape us all to get to where we are. But I look at my first captain was brother John Muhammad, who's in Greensboro now. My second captain was Brother Reginald Muhammad, who's a hard worker and still right here in Charlotte now. There was been ministers like Brother Minister Robert and Brother Minister William and Brother Minister Yusuf that many may know from Springfield area that worked really hard here in the Charlotte area as well. And so those are some of the ones that I could mention. I mean, so many other laborers, the current laboring staff. I thank Allah for the current laboring staff that I work with, hard workers, to help, again, make our word bond. But this is a city with a lot of history, just as many others, but a lot of rich history here. One time, Sister Clara Muhammad School. Of course, there was the Shabazz Fish and Take. So there's much that we have to do and add to what has already been done in this great city.
Wow. And you're talking about the work that has been done and the work that is being done now. Can you share with the audience about some of the things that you all are doing? Because as I prepared for this interview and came across many pictures of you are very active in the mosque there, is very active in the city of Charlotte. So what are some of the programs and activities and outreach efforts that you all are engaged in?
Yeah, so when I first was actually take this post, one of the things I did was just connected to as many community organizations. I wanted to just be visible, get a chance to meet. I met many of them before, but this is just in a different position, a different role I was in. And so I strive to make sure we collaborate on a lot of different, whether it's functions, whether it's programs, whether it's different initiatives. We happen to have the LOC still active here, the local organizer committee. Wow. The LOC that started with the Million Man March, and then because it took local organizing to help make that happen when Charlotte had the amount of buses that it had. But then in 15, we reignited the LOC here under national instructions. And really from that point on, we still have some of the members now when the LOC is still around, still doing some work in terms of re-exciting and the campaign for conflict resolution, working on that. I work with the Mecklenburg Council of Elders. I sit on the board as a I shouldn't say sit, because we do a lot of activities, whether it is helping with know your rights type presentations and seminars, whether it's expungement clinics. That's what the Mecklenburg Council of Elders do that I work as a part of too. So quite a few. And then staying in touch with clergy, staying in touch with others. But the main thing we strive to do is make sure we out there in the community, with the final call and just talking to our people. You know, so that's some of the things that we're doing now. So other things I can share, but those are some of the main things.
Man, that is a lot. And I know that there's much more that you are actually involved in as well. Now,
Yes,
you've
sir.
been a student minister for some years. You know, what are some of the most valuable lessons you've learned while serving in this capacity?
Well, when we think about this, all the meetings that we go to, Sunday, for example, let's say if we were having a Sunday meeting, which we do have a Sunday meeting, but if the mosque were when we were publicly having them. And Sunday meetings, a lot of times I was taught is for those that are coming out that's not necessarily registered members of the Nation of Islam. And so the same thing with Wednesday meetings is really not necessarily for registered members of the Nation of Islam. It's registered for us to have guests coming out, and then we get acceptances from there. But then if we look over in the classes set up for the brothers and the classes set up for the sisters, those are designed to help us and strengthen us. But Friday self-improvement is something that helps us to focus on getting better from the inside out. So if you was asking me some of the things I've learned is that the greatest jihad any of us will face is that jihad of fighting against the negative part of self, fighting against the not having discipline of self, fighting against all of that. So some of those principles I would say is that it's good that the human eye is made to look out. It doesn't look in. But a lot of times we got to make sure we're looking in and just being, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan put, when the new year came in, he said, be a better version of ourselves this year than we were last year. And so that's one of the things I would just stress to myself. I constantly strive to do that, to examine self, analyze self, correct self, work on the quickening of the self-accusing spirit. And it's the same thing I would say with others, is that let's work on becoming better. As we become better, our nation improves and our community improves and our marriages improve and everything else.
Yes, sir. And what would you say are some of the misconceptions people have about the student minister's post?
Some may think that it's just a post when you're just talking, just going out talking to people, but it's a lot more work outside of that. As a matter of fact, it's more or designed to be administration and pastoral. So those are some of the areas that, I find myself working on the pastoral side of that. So misconceptions is that just, ministers just talk. No, there's a lot more to it other than just talking.
What has been some of the most rewarding experiences as being a student minister for you?
Oh, brother, some of the most rewarding experiences is when we're sharing the word and someone hears it. And you got people sometimes that hear it and they really, really appreciate what's being said to them and they show you that appreciation. So if I had to look at rewarding experiences, it's really just serving, and not just serving, no, but being happy with serving, striving to help somebody's quality of life be better, and sincerely motivated to be able to do that. So it's that experience. Now, I would also say it's been beautiful as well. And a few different experiences being at the National House for dinner with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, but even some of the community events, those of us that are striving to be in these positions, oftentimes the community has a certain level of respect that we may or may not have earned, but if we take it and strive to build on that, it leads us to many wonderful places.
And what do you say in regards to coming out of this COVID, this pestilence from heaven, as the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan refers to it? Like, what are some of your goals and for the actual mosque there in your city?
I got to say something that's funny here. And, a lot of us, from administration, laboring standpoints, may have taken some time off, doing the, when I say take time off, we didn't have to go to a mosque building, and it was only a few months ago when we started soldiering again. But my wife would say, well, shoot, you never did really rest, because we kept certain things. We just went to Zoom and just did via Zoom. And, so looking back, coming out of this, some of the goals and plans that I have, a podcast. There's a brother here that's very, very popular on the radio here. We've been talking about that, something to help us connect to the community more and have more people learn about it. So podcast, as well as a couple of entrepreneurial virtual things that the mosque can do as well.
Beautiful, 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 man. And, here
I would say would just be this in the ministries. We have a focus on reigniting the ministries and reigniting the conflict resolution, that effort to put a little more weight behind that.
Praise be to Allah. Now, you said something that was interesting as well, how you all have been able to keep the local organizing committee still up and running since 2015. Like, so what has allowed you, how have you all been able to do that?
Well, a core group that really helps with that. You know, it's a core group. As I look back and look at it now, it's a core group. So now, I don't want to make it sound like it's a lot. It's about 4 or 5, but it's a core group that stay in communication. And even though the LOC may not have as many events, we believe in the saying collaboration over competition. So some of us are involved with other different events and other different programs to help. But we, you know, again, it's that core group that really like what they do and like what it's about. And that's what I think has helped us be able to still be in touch with each other and even look at things we can do to reignite it and more participation.
Praise be to Allah, man. We thank you for those comments. And
yes,
time
sir.
is flying by so fast, but we still got more questions that we're going to ask.
All
and
right.
We're coming up on to our 30-minute into our next break. I'm saying a 30-minute break. But for those who are watching, we're here with our brother Corey Muhammad. He's the student minister of Muhammad Mosque number 36. You've heard him tell his story about how his father was a member of the Nation of Islam, his grandmother, and you heard him talk about what's taking place in the city of Charlotte, what the mosque there is doing and what they plan on doing. Please share with others to get so they can hear the last half of this actual interview. Make sure you hit the like button, brothers and sisters, because that helps us to get more eyes on this program. And make sure you subscribe as well while you're watching. We're going to pause from some announcements from our public sponsors, and we'll be right back with our brother Corey Muhammad. Thank you all for joining us again. We're here with our brother, student minister Corey Muhammad of Mosque number 36 in the city of Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, brother Corey, while preparing for this interview, I came across some videos of the minister speaking in Charlotte. And I also found the video, not a video, it was an image of you actually in the minister was speaking. You were behind him and sitting down, looking up as he was speaking. You know, what can you share with us just about the whole impact of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan when he has come to the city of Charlotte?
Oh, brother, if I go back and look, I became involved with Muhammad Mosque 36 back in '89. And the first time the minister came here that I'm aware of would have been June of 1990. And there's been some visits since then at churches and all the way up until, again, the Holy Day of Atonement, the 17th anniversary. But in terms of impact, yes, we had to work really hard to fill up the Bojangles Center. And some of us remember as believers that could have come to that and came to Family Day that happened. But the impact has been those that hear and have heard the minister's words. They love him. The minister said he went before us and he's, made friends for us in so many different places. So Charlotte is no different. The beautiful thing about the impact, a lot of times when we go out today, some of the newer, younger generation, some of them have never heard. Now, some have, but a lot of them have never even heard the ministers. So when they read something or we share something with them, especially if we keep visiting and talking back to them, it's that whole light turning on. Just like it was for any of us when we first heard this teaching, a light turned on in our minds. And that's what the impact of the minister's words has done here in Charlotte to those that listen. And so even that may not lay out the quote unquote red carpet, or may not include the Nation of Islam and some of the things that the nation should be included in, the impact has been great here. As our minister, as we know, is a world traveler.
Wow. And, I've been present when you were one of the guests that were invited to the palace in Chicago after the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has delivered a lecture there on a Sunday at the Mosque Mariam. So can you share with the audience, what that experience is like, and how did you feel being invited as one of the dinner guests for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and what were some of your takeaways?
Oh, first, brother, extreme appreciation. And when I say extreme appreciation, because I'm able to attend representing Muhammad Mosque 36, but only the work of the believers here, the work of the other laboring staff here. So unfortunately, everyone wasn't able to go. So I felt appreciation first. Then you want to know the second thing was fear, scared to death. Wasn't sure if I was going to say something wrong, or just wasn't sure how the whole process worked or any of that. That's just, I guess, the lighter side of it. But just seeing the minister and environment, the times that I've been blessed to see him, to hear the gentleness of his voice, how it sounds, to see he act the same, you know, it's not like a different person. The few times that I've been blessed to be around, it's the same beautiful, humble, loving spirit. And so it's impacted me in many ways. One of the times when you and I even shared notes, you know, I'm trying to first, I didn't know that I wasn't wise enough to go to prepare to have something to write down everything. So I wanted to be able to catch that. So I'm trying to jot stuff down on a napkin and jot different things down at the minister sharing. And didn't want to try to mess it up remembering. But what I pull from that really is extreme appreciation, because we think about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. It's 7+ billion people on this planet. And for all of us as original people here in the wilderness of North America, the affinity we should have for him, and many of us do have for him. And then the smaller group of those in the Nation of Islam, and then even smaller group to be able to be in an environment like that. Oh, brother, extreme appreciation. I thank Allah for all those experiences.
Wow, praise be to Allah. You know, the title of this show is I Have a Testimony, and it's based on the scripture in the book of Revelation that says how Jesus speaks about the power of a testimony. And, you know, it's really geared to allowing people to give their perception, give their experience, their interaction, or their views about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan for the purpose of helping to clear up misconceptions and look past the slander and the lies that this society or those in power have done toward the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So my next question to you is that if you were able to give a testimony about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan before the world, and you were asked to testify about 3 qualities of the minister, what would be those 3 qualities of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan you would testify about, and why?
Long suffering, patient, humble. So many qualities. And I like what you said, is rooted in the book of Revelations. And in the root of that word testimony is that word test there. So why would I testify to that? And not necessarily in the order that I gave it in, not necessarily in that order. But if I had to just start off with the patience first, is that the minister has been working with Black people. Some of us, we get involved with organizations and somebody make us mad, or something is said here or something is said there, and we just throw our hands, take our ball home, just be done with the whole thing. But the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has had people that he's helped in various different ways turn around and talk about him, say bad things about him, and then he still embraces that person. So that patience right there, to have patience with us, to see us do things that, in contrary, he could have just finished teaching, and then to see how some of us may go back to doing some of the things he just instructed us not to do. Long suffering. Well, the minister shared with us his earlier times being a minister and how they had to eat. See, some of us may look at just where he lives now and some of the cause that may be there, but we don't see all the long suffering, because this work, the ministry and this kind of work, it's not a work that's financially rewarding. Although, you know, if you seek first the kingdom of God, and all the other things are added on to you, but it's some long suffering and that of sicknesses. At times that the minister stands up, even when he stands up, even it's recent to this day, and may have pain that he's experiencing, yet and still continues to go on, even when hurt, or even all of that. So the long suffering, you know, the patience, the humility. And you mentioned something, the slander, the lies. Some of us may have our phone set to Google and may do Google alerts. And so every time they say something about the minister, you see the lies that's being told. But the one thing about it, the truth always outlasts the lie. And so those that they thought they could dim the light of what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is teaching, more and more of our people are hearing. I remember after Criterion, I forgot the rapper. My wife could probably tell me. The brother was like, the minister was a little long with it, man, but he was bringing it. And this was someone that all the young people really like. So all the efforts, they're going to naught. Because when someone really hears the minister and they see who he is and hear his words, it helps people understand to overcome the lies. So that last thing I would say on that humble part is, you know, the minister doesn't try to make himself big. He says that he's a student. So to this day, he's still a student. And to watch him and watch how Allah is blessing him, but yet and still he holds that humility. Those are 3 that I would testify of the
Beautiful,
Honorable
man.
Minister Louis Farrakhan. So many more, but those were three things. Since
I mean, hey, you're on the witness stand, my brother. If you want to add a few more, we got the time. You have a few more you want to add?
Yes, sir. Well, on top of those that just mentioned, trusting in truth. I mean, we think about it. No, I was watching on a flight recently. I was watching the Judas. I think it was the Judas, the movie
Messiah.
that came out recently. What was the name of it again, my brother?
Judas and the Black Messiah.
Right, that. Okay, I was looking at that on the flight recently, and we look at all the organizations that COINTELPRO took down, and none of them have been able to come back to their former glory other than the Nation of Islam, due to the work of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, all the work that he's done to build that, the work that he's done with his reputation. Those that lie on him may say a lot of things, but one thing they never say, they never calls him a liar. That's one thing they never say about the Honorable Louis Farrakhan. They never say liar. And so we look at the truth that he stands on, courageous, the courage that the minister has. And when Brother Minister Willie, you know this as well, Student Minister Willie, this word is not for cowards. And so the minister go right in, because sometimes, sometimes some of us might want people to like us and all this, that, the other. But when you have this word, as the Quran says, if you haven't delivered my message, then, if you don't give my message, you haven't delivered. That's going to the messenger of Allah. But so any of us that pick it up, whether we in a quote unquote laboring post or just period, this is not necessarily going to make you popular all the time. But none of the prophets and servants of God ever have been.
And how would you say, what would you say has been the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's greatest impact on your life personally?
Brother, a father figure, because again, my father, after I was 6, 7 years old, really, there was just some time there due to certain circumstances. There was just a lot of time, many, many, many years. And so like a lot of young men that's trying to be husbands right now, men that's trying to be this and trying to be that. A lot of us haven't had an example in front of us, a worthy example in front of us. So one of the ways the minister has impacted me has been like a father figure from afar. On top of all the other ways he's impacted me, been like a father figure, because a lot of our Christian brothers and sisters, we had this little saying, the little bracelets everybody had, WWJD, what would Jesus do? And so oftentimes I will find myself, if I'm challenged with something, WWFD, what will Farrakhan do? Because he was and is giving the example on what it really means to be a man, a righteous man, a man of principle. That not just an example to men, really to women as well, but from a male standpoint, that missing figure that a lot of us didn't have and unfortunately don't have in our lives.
Could you, if you had to recommend to somebody that was watching this actual video, this interview, and if they wanted to, look past to what the media has said about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, what advice would you give them, so to help them to gain a greater understanding and a more accurate view of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan?
Cut off sound bites, because sound bites are designed to do just that. Sound bites give us a bite of something, but it doesn't give us the whole. So if I'm going to make any kind of assumption, I got to hear the full thing. So my advice would be hear him for yourself. Hear a whole message for yourself. There's got to be a reason that some of the toughest of our people, that when the West Coast and East Coast beef was going on with rappers, how the minister was able to set them down and help quell a lot of that. Do it for yourself. Listen for yourself. Hear him for yourself without, the added influence of media. I just want to mention it so we can go and research it ourselves. There's a science called perception management that the United States Army used earlier on. Advertisers use it too. I would just suggest us to take a look at that perception management.
And can you elaborate on perception management from what you read about that?
And you know what I just realized? I thought I had this plugged in. I hope this battery doesn't down me. But perception management, it's the science of changing someone's perception by giving information, like the way the writers write and the news media and all these different things. They're able to do exactly what they're doing to change the way we perceive what it is that we're reading.
Wow.
The scriptures call the Quran Pharaoh's magicians. Magicians sleight of hand.
That's right.
So there's a lot of sleight of hand things that's being reported now. There's illusions, But unfortunately, we can get caught up in thinking the illusion is a reality.
Yes, sir. And what we'll do, we're going to go to break and actually give you some time to
Yes,
plug
sir.
in your battery, and we'll come back
Sorry
and
about that.
continue this interview with our brother student minister, Corey Muhammad. Make sure you all who are watching, you got to hit that like button, brothers and sisters. Hit the like icons. If you're on Facebook, you know, make sure you subscribe to NNV if you're on our YouTube page as well, and continue to tag some people so they can hear the last 15 minutes of our brother, of his testimony. And make sure we appreciate those who are also making comments. We see you, Sister Mariam Walton. We see you, Coach Cherie Bapti. I don't want to say your name. We see you, Sister Valerie. We see those who are here who are actually watching. We see All Day _ we see Sharifa Salim. We appreciate all of those and those who are watching. We love your support. Make sure you subscribe, and we will be right back to hear more of our interview with our brother Corey Muhammad. And we're back with our brother Corey Muhammad, who is the student minister of Muhammad Mosque number 36 in the marvelous city of Charlotte, North Carolina. So, you know, in addition to being a student minister, you know, I researched about you and on the city's website for your mosque. It talks about how you've been self-employed for over 20 years. Can you talk to those who are watching and share with us some of the lessons you've learned about being self-employed?
Absolutely, brother. You know, I remember the minister mentioned, and I can't think of when it was, but he mentioned the profession of sales. And he mentioned that because he talked about how that profession, you know, and he was talking about the Jews and had their backpacks and they would go and they would sell different things. But anyway, he was talking about just that profession, period. And so for those that have a desire to be self-employed, I wanted to share something with us. Is that as an FOI, when we go out and we take the final call into the streets, when we take and distribute the final call, the goal is never because we're going to get $1 or $2. It's never the money. And the FOI, I know what I'm talking about there. It's to get the word to the person. Just so happens that, you know, the person gives a donation. But one of the biggest challenges sometimes with, you know, going in business and entrepreneurship is fear. It can be fear of rejection. It can be all of that. For those of us that soldier, you hadn't seen any rejection till you've seen that, but it's a work that we love to do. And so the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, now the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, has us in suit and bow tie. So here we are. We'll be out there. Some calls, some people will laugh at you. Matter of fact, I've had people spray me with a super soaker water gun. This was many, many years ago. That happened. Boy, that baby angry there. But so many people would say, no, we learn certain skills. It kind of remind me of the whole Mr. Miyagi thing in Karate Kid. And that Karate Kid, he was being trained on certain things, but it was being done in which a way the master would do it. He didn't even know he was being trained. So I would say for those that when we soldier, when we learn, so we're learning to engage with people. We learn to deal with people. In any business I know of, we're going to deal with people, going to get to know people, whatever kind of business is. General contracting, you know, whether it's going to be some other type business, entrepreneurship, but it's going to be dealing with people. So we're learning people skills. We're learning the proper way of handling people. We're learning how to deal with rejection. We learn how to be able to share with people something that we have and be able to get to them. So some of the success that in terms of how you want to look at it, because I haven't hit a time clock in 21 years by the grace of Allah, but a good bit of that's been what I learned in the streets from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, what I learned from soldiering and still learn from soldiering, and what I learned from engaging and dealing with people. Because we're in the people business. The thing is, we say that a lot in the nation, but and the other things, if you're going to be in business for yourself, that's the people business too, because it's good to do a good job, but it's better to do a good enough job where they have the relationships to when other people tell you about other people who tell you about other people who tell you about other people. So that would be one of the things I would say. And just having a student mindset when it comes to entrepreneurship. The nation takes out of us fear. So some of us won't start things that we could start just because we're afraid. Feed the faith, starve the fear.
And it's interesting that you close out talking about fear, because that was the next question. You know, for many people, that 4-letter word fear is one of the things that prevents many of us from taking that first step. You know, what advice would you give to others who desire to want to be self-employed, but may be allowing fear to hold them back?
Well, I put a Facebook post up, and the other day it said faith and fear both cause us to see things that aren't there. Because, you know, faith, the definition is you know, faith, when we look at what faith means, Faith means we actually may not see something today, the substance of things hoped for, we may not actually see it though. And so the same thing with fear. Are we going to experience it? Yes. Fear, faith, and truth. I encourage any of us to listen to that, or if we can look at that. But I also encourage us to know it's not that fear is bad. It's just how we're going to respond to it. Everybody probably experiences it in some way. It's just how will we respond to whatever fear that we have, because it holds us back in so many ways. And that's why, brothers and sisters, the study guide, the self-improvement course, I would be doing a great disservice. I didn't say that some of the things that's helped me in an amazing kind of way is what we learned right there in all those different studies. Hey, building human potential, mixed feelings and controversy. How are we going to handle that? All those have sometimes a deeper meaning that we may just see it on the surface.
I remember when I was there in Charlotte, you and I were talking. You made a very interesting point. You talked about how some of us want money, but at the same time of desiring wealth and desiring money, we also hold these negative views about money. I don't know if you remember that discussion we had.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Can you elaborate more on how
I'll just
inconsistent that is?
Yes, I can touch on it briefly. The power of the mind is so powerful. So we can either attract things or we can repel things based on how we think. The Savior promised us luxury, money, good homes, and friendships in all walks of life. But after, in a certain mathematics in our Islam that we apply to that. But sometimes we can, just repel success. We can repel money. In this society we live in right now, money is necessary. But if we have been taught bad habits, even if we don't have a whole lot, but if we've been taught bad habits, if we've been taught not to put aside percentage of things for charity, then for ourselves as well. But most of us will say, well, can't do that because I'm behind on everything. At some point, if we follow this principles and everything we do and laws and everything we do, is we start learning laws that help with wealth, not always meaning money in terms of wealth, but it helps us to attract more of it the more we study it, the more we study the science of, attracting, the more we study of what we say. It's important on how we speak, because guess what? We're listening when we speak. And so when we're listening to the minister, we listen to the empowering things like that. We're listening, we're reading Quran, we're on top of our prayers. We're really trying to help change our mind. At some other point, I'd love to be able to share more on that end, but how we speak a lot of times, how you doing, bro? I'm just getting by. I try not to use that kind of language. I think a lot every day.
Hey, use this time right now to speak on that talk. Can you talk about that, the importance of, watching what we say?
Yes, sir. Absolutely. What we speak is a reflection of what's in our minds, what's in our heads, what we share. And so listen, when I listen to the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and we listen to what he shared with us, now he's told us, don't just focus on growing horizontally. He told us to focus on going vertically, growing vertically in addition to horizontal. So I would say to any of us, look at Brother Thomas Jihad said something to me alone, not just to me, he said it to the believers. Brother Thomas Jihad said that he learned early, a long time ago, that he said he learned how to live off of 75% of his income went to bills and 25% went to, things that he would do for himself, investments and things of that sort. He learned to live off 75% of his income. He said at this stage in his life, now he can live off 25%. Instead, and he's actually reversed the numbers. And I hope I had those numbers correctly, but if I remember correctly, that's what he said. So what I would share with us is, when it comes to our associations and how we think, when it comes to little things, little things when it comes to our money, sometimes we have to really look. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad didn't teach us to be extravagant in any of those things. He just taught us to be able how to do what we have, but he also taught us how to set something aside, how to make sure we are setting something aside to make sure that we are using wisdom in all that we do. So I would just suggest to us, some of us may have a desire to want to get better. I say start with the study guides, start with the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But then from there, it's okay. In my opinion, if we read something, we want to know something about wealth, then we may want to study something that's going to help us know something about budgeting. Then we may want to study something that's going to help us with our personal budgeting, because somebody may have a little bit. Just because we have a little bit, many of us think we get a whole lot tomorrow to be different. No, if we haven't learned how to use a little bit, then probably we get a whole lot. That's just going to, go to the same place that the little bit went to if we don't know how to properly manage it.
Wow. You mentioned, you quoted from the lesson when it talked about friendship in all walks of life. For someone that has been self-employed for over 20 years, how important is that statement that's mentioned in the lessons as it relates to business, friendship in all walks of life?
Oh, it's important in business, important in life, period. There's an old saying, and again, sometimes we may think it just means financially. We don't necessarily mean financially. Our net work can help equal our net worth. And again, I don't judge myself on net worth by a certain amount of money. No, there's no amount of money that can tell us who we really are. But what I would say is that we learn how there may be people that can open up certain doors or share certain things with us. It goes back to the student. When the student is ready to teach their peers, but if we are wise students, the more we begin to meet different people, the more our network grows, and we got a lot of people that we can learn things from. You know, maybe I'm into a trade. Maybe if I'm trying to get into a trade, it'd be wise to make sure I begin to have friends in my network that's really good at that trade, even mentors that I've added to my network, because they can share with me things that will cut off many years off my learning curve.
Beautiful, beautiful, man. Thank you. We thank you for all that you have shared, my brother. Your testimony is very inspiring. Your story is very inspiring, and I've learned more about you. And I hope others who are watching this as well, they will get the opportunity to learn more about you as well. And even those believers there in your city to see the jewel that they have in you, man. May Allah continue to bless you. Thank you for accepting our invitation, and may God continue to bless you, my brother.
Oh, brother, all praises due to Allah. Thank you. And I want to encourage all of us listening to this, to continue to strengthen our relationship with Almighty God Allah. Continue to hear the man in the midst today, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. Thank you, dear brother. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. And for those who are watching, I'm going to ask you again, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you tune in every Sunday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. And also I think that's 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will greatly appreciate it. And as we get ready to wrap up, we want to close out with our normal announcements. We're still here in the process in the city of New Orleans of working to pay off our mortgage. We're trying to get 144 people. It's a little less than that, because right now we probably need about 138 people, because people have been giving donations just to donate $100. If you can give a $100 donation, we would greatly appreciate it. You can make that payment via Cash App. You can make that payment via the GoFundMe on PayPal, or you can contact us on social media if you want to find out, mail it or something else. But please make sure that you give a contribution. We will greatly appreciate it. We want to put our mortgage to rest. In addition to that, we also are constantly praying for those who are in our city or people, whatever, who've been impacted by this COVID. Send the names of you, if you need prayer, your loved one, so we can submit their names to our prayer group. And inshallah, within the next coming weeks, we want to offer another initiative related to this whole thing dealing with prostate cancer prevention that we were going to launch here from the city of New Orleans as well. So we thank you all for tuning in to NNV National Network View. Make sure you tune in throughout the week. Remember, this is not just a online show. We have our own beginning stages of a national news network where you can hear perspectives and commentary about news events from the standpoint and the lens and the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Go to NMV on YouTube, hit the notification button so you can find out when it happens. This is your brother. Make sure you spread this interview with our brother Corey Muhammad. And this is your brother Willie Muhammad, signing off with National Network View. Peace.
God came to us to seek and to save that which was lost. He raised a man from among us.
He, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, laid the foundation. What I'm doing is something that comes from him through me, and the thing that he uses in me to do the work is my faith in him and the word that he taught. To produce men and women who wanted to clean up their life and build an independent nation for the glory of God.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.